All right, so we are just about 2 minutes after, so I will go ahead and get us started. As people are jumping on, we'll just let that happen naturally. Um, I think I know everybody on here, but for those watching the recording, I suppose. My name is Chelsea Kamik. I'm the Chief Wellness Officer for your agency, so I provide wellness services to you guys in the real estate field. I think that's a really amazing opportunity for me. One, because you guys are all entrepreneurs and most of you are already very health conscious, so I love the challenge that brings me to always provide information that you can use for your own life and also information that will help you in your business. So information that you can share with your clients. And today's workshop is part of our virtual wellness summit. And it's probably one of the ones that I'm more excited about because it's so specialized in real estate, which is something I'm very passionate about as far as wellness in our home and how we live. So I'm more than delighted. I was trying to get the cheesy grin off my face because Veronica is somebody that I respect and look up to in this industry, even though we don't work closely together. We've been connected for a couple of years just at my work with out in Jackson, Wyoming. And Veronica is in Jackson Hole and she owns Vera Iconica architecture. And not only is she an architect that specializes in wellness, but she's also a pioneer in the wellness industry. So she's often featured in the Global Wellness Institute and most recently recognized as a one of the women leaders in wellness and for her work in architecture. So today she's going to be talking about wellness in architecture. And I think I will let Veronica take it from here because she will do a much better job of introducing her session than I will. So I will hand it over to Veronica. One thing I will say is if you guys have questions throughout, we want these to be interactive as well. So I'd love it if you can put questions that you have in the chat. You can put the chat to everyone, but I'll moderate the chat to help Veronica along. So if we have some time at the end, we'll open it up for your questions. So I'll hand it over to Veronica.
Wonderful. Thank you, Chelsea. And thank you to all of you who are joining us. I have the participant tab open on my computer so I can kind of see and recognize a lot of your names. So really, I'm here to just basically share a little bit about wellness architecture, which is my field of expertise, but really answer any questions or thoughts you might have if there's any pending questions on your mind of what's coming down the pipeline or the future, or is this relevant or is it relevant only to a certain type of product or demographic? Wherever you guys want to take the questions, I invite you to not only put them in the chat, but if you do want to speak up and ask a question, you are more than welcome to do that. So we're going to be looking at basically two things today. What is wellness architecture and why is it important? And then the second thing is I do a lot of work forecasting what's coming down the pipeline for future. And so we can talk about some of those fun ideas and what some of the predictions are. I write different trend reports, sometimes for Forbes or different media releases, the Global Wellness Summit. So that's kind of what I have planned today. And if you want to take it somewhere else or focus on something, feel free to ask questions. So as Chelsea said, I own Vera Iconica Architecture, and I own two other companies. I own Vera Iconica Developments and Vera Iconica Wellness Kitchen. And we'll talk about the wellness kitchen when we get to the future part of it. But what my passion is really how can the environment support us to be our optimal version of ourselves? So I want to start with kind of where architecture in the building industry has been living over the past 80 years. So I'm going to show you a slide. So this is a graph where you can see, do you produce energy and resources, or are you consuming energy resources? On the left, we have degenerative design and regenerative or living systems. So today, the majority of not only what we build, but where our codes live, they actually live in this lower quadrant where they take a lot of energy and consume a lot of energy, not only from an environmental standpoint, but also from a human standpoint. So right now, if I build a building to code, this might surprise you, but buildings built to code can actually diminish your health. They have toxic materials in them. There's not actually enough air changes per hour to support your cognitive function just at a normal level. There's all sorts of things that buildings built to code do to us biologically and mentally that are not setting us up for success. So the next, for the past 25 years, we've had the green movement. And the green movement is really a big step above code and what we've been doing for the past 70 years. But it's still, the majority of the buildings still consume energy and resources, and a lot of them aren't necessarily healthy. Just because a building doesn't use a lot of energy doesn't mean that it's healthy for the people living inside the building. True sustainability is something that's neither giving or taking. The next level that we talk about is health, what I call health architecture. And some of you may have heard about the WELL checklist. The United States Green Building Council had LEED, which many of you are familiar with. And about 5 years ago, they added the WELL standard. And the WELL standard, where LEED focused on environmental and green architecture, WELL focuses on human well-being. And I'm actually an advisor to WELL, so I sometimes nerd out and go through all the checklists and talk about what should be included, or how the point or rating system should be organized, specifically for the nourishment category, which ties into some of my work with kitchens and kitchen design. So the next level is well-being. So if you think about health architecture versus well-being, like what is the difference? Health architecture might be something where I can go in and I say, you have clean air, you have pure water, and these are things that I can measure and give you feedback on. Well-being is a little bit trickier, because well-being actually starts talking about our emotions and our happiness and these things that are a little vaguer. But there is a lot of science that shows that your environment is continually influencing and impacting those things. So then the final level, which is also a really interesting one, is, postulates that architecture can elevate your consciousness and kind of like nourish your soul. So these might be awe-inspiring moments. So I'm going to stop the screen share here just to talk to you, but this is kind of the basis of where, how to think about architecture from what people have been designing for past decades and what architecture is capable of. So I'm just hopping out of that really quick and getting myself back to Zoom. So let's look at the science behind that. So first of all, I told you earlier, well, if you build a building to code, it actually could be diminishing your well-being. So the School of Public Health at Harvard did a study about 4 years ago, and it was a double-blind study. They had different neuroscientists and people coming to work in a building up in Syracuse, New York. And what they were doing is they were playing with the air quality. They had one that just had the air changes per hour that was built to code. Then they had one that was built to LEED standards. And then they had an advanced high performance building that had air changes continually providing fresh air, similar to what you would get in nature. And what they found is that buildings built to code can diminish your cognitive performance by 70% in some categories. So they were testing things like memory recall, storing information, things like that. Some other interesting studies that have come out is, that are on the opposite side of that graph that I just showed you, where can architecture actually provide a transcendental experience? There's a lot of people these days talking about mindfulness and meditation. And so can real estate products and architecture actually deliver it? And the answer is yes. So there's a terminology in architecture called thin places. And thin places are places that help elevate you and put you in a separate state. So, you know, we all live these fast-paced, busy lives, and we always have to be on. And so that's why there's all of these apps, or, you know, breathing alarms on your phone to remind you to breathe, to meditate. You know, all of these things are proliferating the marketplace because of our need to slow down and gain more balance. Well, certain non-ordinary architecture that can actually set you up to deliver these transcendental experiences. And so what neuroscientists have studied, they've partnered with different architects, and they've put the EKG machines on, or, you know, or helmets on people's head, and they've measured them as they've gone into ordinary environments and buildings and non-ordinary, you know, like special places. And what they find is that when people enter these special places, that your frontal lobe shuts down, just as it does in meditation. And we essentially enter this non-dualistic state, or what psychology calls a flow state. That's our highest state, where we're able to fulfill our highest potential. So why does all of this matter? What does that mean? What it means is that if we have the power to design something that can help somebody enter their flow state, for example, whether it's residential or it's in a workplace, versus diminishing cognitive performance by 70%, think about what that does for the bottom line. So some of the work that our office does is with, you know, large corporations, or tenant fit outs and interior design on corporate structures to really help organize the workplace so that it's just a nicer place to be, so that you can perform higher. And what we've seen is less presenteeism, less absenteeism, higher job satisfaction, less turnover. It actually impacts the quality of relationships. So there's a really big, you know, impact on the bottom line when you start to realize what architecture is doing to us biologically, mentally, and even, you know, aspirationally. So that's a little bit about the science behind it. And now I'll like shift over into the future, unless we have some questions or anything that has come up in chat.
Nothing in the chat. I think it's really awesome. I especially start thinking about when you talk about that, Veronica, like how many people, especially those agents that are in residential real estate, how many people are, you know, working from home and trying to exercise from home. So how important it is for maybe people looking for a home, and how if you guys are selling, it might be really amazing to either, you know, if you stage places that way, or you really highlight the areas in a home that are meant for these certain activities, whether it's, you know, like an exercise space or a meditation space or a working space that has these elements that will encourage that flow state or more creativity and things. I think that's a struggle for a lot of people, like working from home and working out from home.
Yeah, really, this whole last year, there's been a lot of really interesting developments, and some of them will be permanent. Some of them will be here to stay. Mm-hmm. Most of the things that I'm talking about today can actually be retrofitted. You know, it doesn't have to be new construction, but whether we're talking about a residential product or, you know, a Fortune 500 tenant fit out in a high rise, these strategy, you know, we can cleanse your air. We can do all of these things. So I won't dwell too much on the science, but just to kind of drive the point home of how important your environment is architecture, and me as an architect, depending on what I specify for you, I can actually impact your gut and respiratory microbiomes, the level of inflammation in your body, your immune system, your stress levels, how you respond to stress, and so on. So it's subtly working there all the time. You know, it might not have as big an impact on us as if you're gluten intolerant and you have gluten and you feel horrible all afternoon. It's more subtle than that, and it's more cumulative over time, but it is constantly impacting us to that level, which is profound, and most people don't know about that. So I do think it's really interesting from a real estate perspective. you know, if you're collecting these portfolios and maybe focusing, like, you know, taking on listings, for example, and you're focused on listings that either are already doing some of the higher wellness things, or able to accommodate and adapt to that, that's going to be really important, because there's a lot of focus on that, you know, in all aspects. This is popular conversation in multiple industries, you know, so I'm seeing it a lot in the thought leadership we do. So something important maybe to look for and seek out. But let's skip over to residential really quick. So you were bringing up, like, okay, if we have all of these activities, there should be a place for them. You know, if we are living in a world today where a majority of people are aspiring to put some kind of meditation, yoga, gratitude practice into their daily lives, and or they're working from home and they need a place that has a little bit of separation from the family or the bedroom. You know, there's so many of us that are working in our bedrooms, and then we literally carry that stress with us to bed and don't get quality sleep, you know, so that has an impact over time as well. So the biggest shift that I see coming for residential architecture is, in the past, for decades, we have just automatically accepted somebody else's idea of what we need in our homes. So a bathroom, right? We all know what's in a bathroom: toilet, shower, vanity. Maybe it's compartmentalized, maybe there's a different layout, but it's those three things. Well, those three things were grouped together originally for two reasons. One, to make plumbing easier, and two, because it was thought of as hygiene, right? So all of those activities are about human hygiene. Well, if we look at Maslow's pyramid, and I don't have an image up, but I think probably most people are familiar with Maslow's pyramid, or the hierarchy of needs. So at the very base, you have, you know, you just need safety and security from the world. You're just trying to survive, right? So in that situation, a cave might be a suitable surrounding for you and a suitable environment because it's protecting you. Well, as you move up, the very top of the pyramid is the self-actualization. And the step right below that is the esteem level. So at the esteem level, what you're doing is you're really trying to, you know, you're striving for status. It's about building confidence. It's about elevating your family. And you get a lot of pride when you know, when you have more square footage, more amenities. And so for the past few decades in architecture and real estate and everything, we've been selling people on, like, oh, this has more luxuries, this has more amenities, because we are appealing to people's desire and need to feel secure at the esteem level. Well, what's happening is more and more people are moving up into the self-actualization category, and they're already confident with where they sit in the world, and they want a little bit more meaning, and they want a little bit more help in their just daily life to optimize themselves and to live a better lifestyle. So when you're talking to those people, what they want might be different. So let's take that example of the bathroom again. Instead of a bathroom with all of these things stacked one right after another, you might have a bathing room. And that bathing room is for a ritual that is grounded or rooted in meditation. It's a time for you to shut out the world, to have an introspective process. Maybe you're doing a detox bath. So it really is mind, body, soul, all in one activity. And then you come out and you're reemerged. That space is not a space for a toilet. So one of the other companies that I mentioned earlier is Vera Iconica Wellness Kitchen. And in that project, what we did, it actually stemmed, I'm a mom, I have 3 kids, a 4-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a 4-month-old. But when I had my 4-year-old, I was really frustrated because I was still working and I was trying to eat healthy, and I was just wasting food left and right. It was like hidden deep dark in my refrigerator or in a like pantry cupboard that I couldn't see. I'd forget about it. And I also, you know, didn't have a lot of time, but in order to eat healthy, preparing fresh food is essential, which means chopping, and it was kind of like drudgery and just didn't feel realistic. So I used it as a design problem and said, okay, could design and the design of a kitchen actually solve some of these issues I'm experiencing? So everybody can go take a look at some of the innovations that we created. We have 8, innovations over 18 areas within the kitchen, and they're very subtle. The kitchen might look like a kitchen that you're used to seeing, but the way that it functions is different. And that really is where the evolution comes in. Instead of having these 1950s kitchens designed for food that have high preservatives in them, and it is just about convenient prep without thinking about health. Today, we need that convenience, but around these whole food, living, vegetable-rich diets. So what that is about is not only how you keep food fresh longer, but how you preserve the nutrient quality of the food. And all of that gets down into the design of the details, the cabinetry, the millwork, having different humidity, water, and temperature control for different fruits and vegetables. We have growing gardens in there that are hydroponics, and have partnered with a company out of Estonia to bring in some of those. The machine actually plays music to your vegetables so that they grow faster and have more nutrients. It's a real thing, a certain spectrum of light. So there's all of these different things, but one of them is also how can it be easy and meditative and become a ritual instead of you dreading preparing food because you don't have time? What if it can be the 5 minutes that you turn off your phone, chop, listen to music, stop your monkey mind for 5 seconds, and then get into more of a family routine. So the way that the kitchen is organized, it still relies on the individual to have that experience, but it's set up to empower and bolster that experience. So those are some examples of just kind of how we see things shifting, people really evaluating, oh, do I want the standard bathroom, or do I want to do something more with my life? And then that ends up changing the actual space and the program, and even the amenities and the way the amenities are laid out within a home, a workplace, or even a community. So I'm just noticing the time. We have about 6 minutes left, so I just wanted to open it up for questions.
That was awesome. Thank you. It's funny, Veronica, the wellness kitchen was actually how I found you. It was like 3 years ago, and I was starting to do this work in real estate. And I think so many of the things that you said really kind of hit home, because these are the very things I think when people ask me, sorry, you have kids, I have dogs. My dog decided to start whining. I think some of the very things that I share with the agents often is really about how do you have these deeper conversations with your clients to figure out what those needs are above and beyond just the typical, let me go sell you a box on a lot. And I think that's why this whole wellness program that I started actually with Julie Foppel really has come to life, because it's trying to get information to spur innovation, to get the thinking pattern to add more of these wellness elements. Because sometimes people go, wellness and real estate, why do I care? And maybe they just breeze over the weekly emails, but some of these things are meant to bring it that direction. And I just thank you so much, because you really hit home a lot of those points and things that we often talk about, but how it really relates into architecture and wellness. So I will stop talking and leave questions and chats.
So there's a couple chats about pictures or examples, as well as sharing information. So our website has both of those. It has some information in some of those graphs that I shared, and also some examples. The Vera Iconica Wellness Kitchen. If you Google Vera Iconica kitchen or architecture, I'll pop up. I have given lectures all over the world. So some of those are on YouTube that you can actually find. The Vera Iconica kitchen actually shows the differences in a conventional kitchen versus the wellness kitchen. And just wanted to invite all of you to reach out to me if you have specific questions, or if you have clients that have specific questions. A lot of the work that I do, I volunteer for the Global Wellness Institute and lead and organize international think tanks. And, we get people from the Mayo Clinic and Harvard and the Cleveland Clinic and, you know, Deepak Chopra, he's actually a client. So we have everything from spiritual leaders to, you know, medical scientists and doctors that, you know, and NASA scientists. We have a project right now that we're working with a lighting scientist, and it's all about how we integrate lighting into a home to regulate hormone production, which then impacts everything, but specifically your immune system and your sleep. So anyways, I could talk for hours about this, but it's all really exciting. And depending on, you know, if somebody has an issue, like let's say you had a client that has a sleep issue, well, we can design and help create a sleep sanctuary for them and retrofit an area so that they get better, deeper sleep without any medication. So there's real world solutions to a lot of things in the wellness world. And we're happy to talk about that, to nerd out with you or whatever it is.
Yeah, I love all of that stuff. And often I'll share some of those things as well. So, you know, and if I can help in any way also, so my specialty is in the human side of the equation. So, you know, I discover the human problems and then we figure out how to solve them. And then I would send them over to Veronica or to you guys to figure out this is what this person might need, right? So also next week, our talk will be about the human side. So we're going to be talking about some of these things like gut issues, immunity, support, things like that. That would really be a great match. So I have a natural doctor coming on next week to talk about some of those things. And it really is all lifestyle. And I just love so much how the home can really support our lifestyle even more than we recognize. And I'm so hopeful that this presentation and this information is like really turning the light bulbs on for people, pun intended, as far as what's possible to really, you know, upgrade human health with how we live and where we live. And so I've often quoted some of your work and some of the research that you've been involved in through the Global Wellness Institute. So I know our agents have seen some of that stuff as well. So cool. Any other questions? No? Good. Cool. So I did record the session. I will prepare the recording and I will get it out to you guys and anybody who did not see it. So if you have a colleague in the office and you thought this was awesome, please make sure you ping them and let them know they can watch the recording. And I did put Veronica's, just the 2 websites she mentioned in the chat, but if you just Google wellness architecture, she's like the one that comes up. So she's the she's the one. So thank you so much, Veronica. This was an absolute pleasure, an honor for me to host you. So I really thank you for your time and for everybody for taking the 30 minutes. This is a part of self-care, so you can check off your self-care for the day because you've learned how to enhance your wellness for 30 minutes. So thank you so much for joining, and I hope to see you guys next Friday at 11:30. And again, feel free to reach out with questions or anything that you need.
Yeah, thank you, Chelsea. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks,
Thank
this was really
you.
great.
Thanks. Bye, guys.